Last time on Dragon Ball Z, our heroes reviewed Michael Romeo's War of the Worlds Part 1. Many of them had a bad experience. But tonight, on today's episode, we find out where our heroes prevail. Will Michael Romeo War of the Worlds Part 2 be too much for them? Find out this week on Dragon Ball Z. Hello, everyone. I am Tracey Newport, your director of this Carnival of Chaos. And with me, as always, is the Reverend Ben Lindsay, the Dr. Dave Pizzo, and the Murder Basement Gabe Cooper. How y'all doing tonight, gentlemen?
I think I'm ready for this war.
Certainly ready for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly ready to discuss this album.
I see Ben reaching over, pulling out the F-tone just already.
He's like cranking it up. He's got to plug it into the generator.
I'm Ron Burgundy. That's what I heard. Like so-called album.
I actually just had to go back and double check something, but it is certainly an album.
It is.
Michael Romeo, War of the Worlds Part 2. I don't know why I added an extra E to that. But this was released on March 25th of 2022. It is his third studio album overall. It was released on Inside Out Music. Michael Romeo is the producer and everything else for this band. The runtime on this is 54 minutes and 12 seconds. Michael Romeo played guitars. He played bass. He played keyboard. He arranged the orchestration. And he did the drum programming. And then he brought in, I may screw up this gentleman's last name, and I apologize ahead of time. Dino Jesselsick for vocals, John DeServio on bass, and John Maculoso on drums, on the ones that are not programmed. So what's this everything you hoped and dreamed it would be, Tracey?
Yeah, why this?
So I was a little disappointed when I heard that they had changed lead singers or vocalist for the previous album to this one, because I thought the vocalist on the previous album did a fantastic job. But while they're very much different style singers, this one is very much good as well, I think, in my opinion. He's got much more of a traditional power metal sound to him, I think, when you think of power metal. In fact, there's I had to double check, because one of the video games I play, or used to play, I don't play it much anymore, the software company actually has a theme in it of a metal band, and that they've released 3 albums based around that fake metal band, and his vocals sounded like it was the dude who sung on those, but it's actually not. It's somebody else. But I had to double check. I'm like, this sounds awfully familiar. I don't think this dude's really done much else besides this. He's done a couple lesser known projects, other
than do some sort of satanic ritual to steal the voice of Rodney James Dio.
This sounded
and that's okay. I'm okay with it. This sounded so much like Dehumanizer, like that era, right in the early '90s when Dio was in Black Sabbath, or Queensryche too.
I've never heard anything Dio in Black Sabbath outside Heaven and Hell.
He also won Eurovision's youth division or something like that. I don't know. I looked him up at one point because I also was curious as to what else he was in. Because I actually thought that he was a much better for this style vocalist than the guy who was on the first album.
Agreed. I think these vocals are better. Even if derivative, fine. Give them to me. Just give it to me.
Sure, man. To Derivative, is this a loving tribute to both the 1950s sci-fi and also 80s power metal, or I won't go so far as to say new wave of British heavy metal, because there's not really the dual guitar work.
I mean, is it Symphony X without it being Symphony X? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Because that's his primary band, and I don't think they've released anything in a while since Underworld.
No, yeah, there was I believe their vocalist was in a car wreck and is maybe still recovering. I don't know, but anyway.
I think this album. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's you pretty well know exactly what you're going to get. Is that this is Michael Romeo really wishing that he could score a a soundtrack for a new War of the Worlds movie.
I think this album's a little better than part one, and we'll see. It sounds like Tracey doesn't feel that way, which is interesting. I think the symphonic tracks are pretty strong and kind of cool. I really do like Sci-Fi. It doesn't annoy me as much as it annoys Ben that it's a movie I've not seen. And I thought the power metal was fine. A complaint I had was I wish they were a little bit integrated. They really aren't here, right? They essentially alternate. And I understand that strategy. In some ways, it was easier to keep them separate. But basically, we get some pretend Danny Elfman, and then we get some power metal, and then we get more pretend Danny Elfman, and then we get more power metal. And I wanted those intertwined. And that might have annoyed Ben even more. It's hard to say, but I felt it. I don't know. It was odd to me. It was like two albums that were not only stapled together but intersliced, right, like this. So I would have loved to hear some more integration, maybe. But I guess that would have been a different album.
That's interesting, David, that you pointed that out. That this is essentially an album that's trying to be both a soundtrack and a score at the same time. And personally, I could really just do without the scoring most of the time because I just find it to be cheesy derivative Hollywood that I don't really care to have in my life without choosing to have it. So should they have been better integrated? I'm not sure. Could he have done that? I don't know. What I can say about this album is that I also enjoyed it more than the last one. And I think that's because it's more polished and more solid compositionally. Like I think the compositions are more interesting. You even pick up, like the last one, I really didn't pick up on recurring motifs, for example, like, certain like themes or melodies that kind of come back over time. Like that says something about Michael Romeo as a composer, and it shows that he has some, understanding of what that is. And that's nice. Again, I find the strings and orchestration to be intrusive, and I would much rather hear the really badass riffs and the solos. You know what I mean? I think that he can do that too. So it's just a question of taste, I guess, in the end. But I think overall, the album worked better for me. I have to say, we'll get to this in a minute, but I also think this album is too long.
I definitely agree that it's too long. And part of that is because of that interlacing that David talked about. When we get to tracks, you're going to see that there's quite a few instrumentals on this. And that's not necessarily always a bad thing. But man, it really, to Gabe's point about this trying to be the soundtrack and the score, leave the score out or like lump those all in the second half. Because this could have been, if you had like, despite the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of some of the actual songs on here, a couple of them are really good. And if you lumped them together, it would have been a pretty fun little sci-fi power metal romp. So,
well, they could have just done, he could have just done fewer of these instrumentals and maybe interlaced a couple of them just interludes and songs. I think there were arrangement things that could have been done that, there's no way you can answer all of the audiences on this Zoom meeting because we all like different things. But still, I think this oscillation between Danny Elfman and Ronnie and like Dio was not entirely successful to me. But I too, nonetheless, enjoyed this more than the previous album.
I think in the first one, they did do that better. I think there's only one full-on symphonic track on the first one.
Yes.
And the rest of them, you have like a 30-minute, second to a minute interlude beginning or end of a song that would then lead into the next track. While here you have full-on 2 minutes, 3-minute tracks that are the interlude. Now there's one that I'm track on here. I was sort of like, really? We could have done without that. It's similar very much to the one on the first one, to where it's like, all right, I could have done without all this noise on this one. Like I think it was the intro to on the first one, fucking robots, I think was the intro on that one, but some of them I could do without.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I'm going to go ahead and pull up this track listing for this album, just so that you can see that there are 4 instrumentals out of 11 tracks. And I get having an intro and a conclusion, outro instrumental, that's not unheard of, but
There are also 2 bonus tracks on the version that I heard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Which,
same. It was even longer. It was like an hour and a
could
half.
they-
It was like
It-
half
it-
my
the,
ride to Bowling Green. Was
Utility
It was an
the
hour
album.
and 6 minutes with the bonus tracks.
It felt
But
like
the
a long
bonus
time.
tracks were bonus tracks, not part of homework.
Well, we did them. I listened to those too.
Yeah, I did too. They were okay, I think, additions, but I think they obviously sounded less polished versions than what's actually on the album. And Hunted was the track that was coming to mind where it sounds like it's the intro to fucking Call of Duty.
Yeah. So which ones of these do you actually like, Tracy? Actually, don't die coughing.
So I actually relatively enjoyed this album outside. Like I think the instrumental for Introduction and Brave New World are both fine. But the Haunted and Mothership ones I could done without. If you've been without those, I think it's all the tracks that everyone will like. But those are really favorite. I think Divide and Conquer, Metamorphosis, Just Before the Dawn, and Hybrids are fantastic tracks. So
I will say that I think you could get rid of all the instrumentals. Choppy. I think that the strongest part of this album is that little run right after the first introduction. Divide and Conquer, Destroyer, and Metamorphosis. Or Metamorphosis.
I liked Divide and Conquer, Metamorphosis, Hybrids, Machine Mensch. I thought was pretty fun, and Parasite, even with the cheesy strings, I enjoyed. Yeah, the instrumental stuff is just too much like Michael Bay, too much synth, too much Hans Zimmer wannabe for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I sometimes like stuff like that. But as I said, I didn't think it was very well integrated. My list is nearly identical to Gabe's. I just want to give an additional shout out to Hybrids. That song's fucking badass. That was the only one on here. I was like, I need to hear that again. I rewound it, listened to it again immediately. Because it's got, not only is it just a cool sort of DOE Queensryche sort of power metal song. It's got this weird thing happening with the time signature. I don't know. It's a cool song. I really like it a lot. It's the one I put on my stuff I listen to right now playlist. So while this album's not perfect and I could have maybe done almost half of it, or certainly a third, it was still a cool ride, and it killed an hour for me driving through the middle of nowhere, and I liked it more than part one.
Say you.
I would give this a great album, an A-. I don't think it's as good as the first part. I actually like that one more still, but this is definitely an A- 92 for me.
And here you were talking shit about it at the beginning. Oh, it's not as good as the first album.
The first album was like a 98. I mean, it's
no. This is hard. I'm going to give this a C, which is the same grade I gave the first album, although I like this one better. But half of this album, let me rephrase that. I like the moments when they're actually just playing power metal and they have a power metal vocalist doing power metal things. That's kind of fucking cool, and there's some really cool moments. The rest of this, nah, man, I do not want.
So I think I said I liked this better than the last one, and it's getting a substantial bump up from there. This is a solid album, a B-, and that's because of the strength of those power metal tracks on here, where there's actual singing and actual riffs.
I gave the last one a B-. I like this one a little more, and there's a couple songs here that I really liked. I'm going to give this a B.
that gives us an average of 84. Now the question is, would you buy it? I think I'm the only one that would reasonably say yes.
I might. I wouldn't be in a hurry. I'd probably just go to your house and listen to it.
Yeah. If this was the 90s and I saw that album cover, I would have bought this, and then I would have been pissed off. So no, I would not buy it, but I would have been.
I straight up felt that way about Danzig 3 when I first heard it, because I saw that album cover and I was really into thrash and shit, and I didn't know who he was, and I got it, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I got into it, but initially I was pissed at that album. It's literally what you're just, and that's a
Right.
Giger cover. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would buy this.
Tracey is the solo Romeo. So
I am. Now I just need a Juliet to make everything go right.
well,
I'm
we
sure
have
there's a band.
something. What's that?
I'm sure there's a band named Juliet somewhere.
There
in the
probably
middle
is. I was actually expecting your wife to come in and murder you, so I was just stalling so that I didn't have to see that. But we do have something special coming up on our next episode. Tracey, tell them what that is.
It is our somewhat not official annual 420 soundtrack for the year, and I have forced sleep the sciences on everybody. Notice I used the word forced. I didn't really give them much of a choice in this one.
The dictatorship of the spreadsheet was in full effect, but with this,
I don't know how I
this
got there.
album
Just
cover.
showed up.
So yeah, join us for that on Thunderdome Metal Reviews.